All right, so this is going to be, I think, my first ever call. I am calling on the White Sox GM, Rick Hahn. He needs to either be fired before the end of this season, or he needs to resign. He could be respectful and resign too. We got to keep those options open. Why am I calling on him to resign? So just a little bit of background knowledge. He started as general manager of the White Sox in 2013. He's the third longest tenured GM in
Yeah, in
MLB.
MLB.
But yeah, we've only made the playoffs one time under his term. He's really been in the organization ties for longer than that, though. He's been in the wing. He was the up and comer in the early 2010s. Bunch of teams were talking about hiring him. He's a hometown kid. He's from the suburbs of Chicago. Uh, and then eventually he did go to the White Sox, which was cool. And for a while, I thought he was a decent GM, and there's some good too. There's always some good. We got to point out the good. In 2016, he led us through the rebuild. Some can definitely argue we should have rebuilt earlier than that, but he did, and it was the right choice. We needed to rebuild. We were going nowhere. We traded away Chris Sale. We traded away Adam Eaton. We got a great trade from the Cubs, getting Dylan Cease and Eloy Jimenez just for Jose Quintana, who was kind of falling apart at that point. There were some very good trades, but then Hahn, he didn't finish the rebuild. He did not finish the rebuild. The last really good offseason he had, well, back up, just first of all, he missed out on Yoenis Cespedes. That could have helped us back way back towards the beginning of him. He missed out on Manny Machado. That was the huge one. He didn't even pursue Bryce Harper, which would have been the better fit for us. This was in the 2019 offseason, so about 4 years ago, kind of when the rebuild was ending. He didn't even talk to them. And that's been the main frustration is he said the money will be spent. It has not been spent. But anyways, let's get back to the kind of the process of things. So 2019 to 2020, that offseason, we had in the 2019 season, the Sox had a pretty good run. We finished like 72 and 89, but we had some great performances. Yohan Moncada was showing out. Lucas Giolito had an amazing year. He was an all-star that year. The pieces were falling into Eloy Jimenez had a great year that year. The pieces were falling into place. Tons of exciting game that year. So that offseason comes, right? 2019 to 2020. And we miss out on Zach Wheeler. Okay, he cried like a little baby. He didn't want to come to Chicago, whatever. That's fine. What do the Sox turn around and do? They do good. They signed Dallas Keuchel. They signed Yasmani Grandal. Great signing. We needed a catcher. They are putting themselves to compete. 2020 goes well. Obviously, the pandemic season shortened it. We made the playoffs. We made the playoffs in the pandemic shortened season, and we got our guys. But the problem is they never built after that. They never built after that. The relievers, he can gotta not get mad. He cannot build a bullpen. He has never built a bullpen. David Robertson was a disaster back in the day. His only good bullpen signing was Liam Hendricks, and that's the last thing he's done to put anything towards a competitive team. So yeah, 2020 was good. And then after that, he said the money will be spent. The money was never spent. Never. We weren't even in consideration for Judge last offseason because our bullpen, because he doesn't know how to manage it, had so much money in there. So much money to guys who didn't deserve. Joe Kelly, come on. And the Craig Kimbrell trade in 2021 was terrible. It was awful. So again, I'm rambling a little bit now because I'm frustrated. And these are all facts. If you think, I'm being a little harsh, these are fact-based. So feel free to challenge me on that in the comments if you please. But anyways, that's what happened. He did not spend the money. The bullpen was way overpaid. We got guys who were not clutch. And for some reason, our players subsidized. Our core, Moncada and all them, they just stopped building. And some of the arguments are going to say, well, that's because you hired Tony La Russa. I was not the hugest Tony La Russa fan. That's true. I don't know if you can blame that solely on him, but I can see at least where you're making that case. But the problem has been Hahn, and that's showing this season because there's no Tony. You can't hide behind Tony. Everyone was, Tony, he the guy with the old man with the DUI. Again, I'm not condoning that. I'm just saying they blamed all of their problems on Tony, and now we are a complete train wreck. We're worse than with Tony. We're one of the worst teams in the league. I bet if the A's played us right now, they would take 2 out of 3. We're terrible right now, and it's time. Hahn was a great GM. I have respect for him. I've said nothing bad personally about him. He just has failed. He can't build a bullpen. He's been around too long. He hasn't won anything. We got to save this core because this core is falling apart right now, specifically the lineup. And we need a new GM who's going to be aggressive. Now, last thing here, why am I saying don't fire Reinsdorf? Well, he's the owner. You can't fire him, number one. But number two, that's not realistic. He's not going to sell the team. He doesn't care what we say. All the guys can wear fire Jerry or sell the team Jerry shirts to the park. And by the way, I encourage you guys to do that. But the fact is, he's not going to do anything. He'll just sit on his billions of dollars. It doesn't matter. So I would call on him to do something. But let's be real. We'll fight that battle when he either sadly passes away or sells the team. Hopefully, much preferred sells the team, but he is 86 or something like that. We'll fight that battle when we get to it. But right now, we got to manage what we can get, and Hahn has to go. He could be respectful or resign, or he can get fired, but that's got to happen before the end of the season.